Kent, I was particularly drawn to this publication because the fact that you are attempting to show that serious deficit reduction does not have to come at the expense of economic growth or the social safety net. And that's something that we deficit hawks get a long time is, oh, well, you'll wreck the economy or you'll, shred the social safety net. And these things can, in fact, be compatible. So, kind of with that as a background, I wonder how you set about. We'll get to the specific reforms, but what were the design principles that you had going into this?
Yeah, it's a great question, and good to see you both, Bob and Steve, again. The idea is that, at the Penn-Wharton Budget Model, of course, we never advocate for a particular plan, but we certainly will give policymakers a range of options to look through. We've done that with every major piece of legislation after the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, and often they, gravitate toward one option versus another, and maybe make some changes and things like that. And so this is really a continuation of that same kind of history. So previously what we did is we surveyed groups that we didn't call them liberal, conservative, and moderate, but essentially that's what they were, liberal, conservative, moderate. And we asked them what's kind of on their wish list of stuff. And we showed what those implications would be about 6 months ago on our website. And instead of calling them liberal, conservative, moderate, we call them basically bundle 1, 2, and 3. And we don't name names or anything like that because we wanted kind of a pure, unfiltered, type view on this stuff. This time, what we did is internally call this bundle 4, although it's not posted that way. We call it a principles-based illustrative reforms of federal tax and spending programs. And in particular, we said, let's now forget about the political exercise and now say, suppose that we were going back to first principles as we learned in public economics and macro and so forth. And we thought about creating basically restart, from fresh. What would that look like? And, what type of problems does government solve? Like provision of public goods, addressing market failures, risk pooling, internalizing externalities like use of carbon, broad-based, as we all know from public economics, broad-based lower rates is much better than narrow-based higher rates. How do you create social insurance that basically pools idiosyncratic risk, that is risk that households cannot insure in the private market, like against wages going up and down, unemployment, things like that? And how do you deal with some of the classic economics problems known as the Smetters dilemma problem, where people rationally undersave or rationally underinsure, knowing that they will be provided for? So the idea, and by the way, also have full accounting for everything, not playing games of cherry picking or adding up things that have strong interactions and not accounting for those interactions, but accounting for everything. So this was a major computational problem. That's on the back end of all this, but it was really this first principles approach to it. And then, of course, we don't live in a world where we can just hit the restart button. We have to phase things in because we got to give people time to say, you know what? We do, one of the things that we're looking at is, eventually we are going to, continue to live longer and longer and longer. At some point, you could say we're not going to change the retirement age, but that's mathematically impossible. So at some point, we are going to change the normal retirement age. And so let's actually be explicit about that. Slowly phase that in. So, for example, don't do anything to anybody above age 50 right now. And then even those below age 50, it's not some sudden age 67 to 70 jump, but a slow phase. And so it happens over decades. And so the idea is that on the front end, we get revenue immediately. Some of this is basically increases in taxation and so forth. But on the back end, that we get slower spending. And so it's not less spending, but slower spending relative to the economy.